All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A session on how to automate your HR workflows with the Deel API. To get started with introductions, I'm Rebecca, and I'm part of the product marketing team. And today we also have Kazar, who's a senior product manager for the API product. And just some housekeeping notes, drop your questions for us in the chat on the right during the session. We want this to be interactive and we want to be able to answer all your questions that you have on the API. So feel free to do that throughout our short presentation and we'll get to your questions at the end. Now to get started, just to give you some context about why we created the API and why now. So what are the challenges that we are trying to address with the API? First is the rise of global hiring. So as the rate of global hiring continues to rise, HR teams need to keep up with the latest tools that are easy to use for hiring, onboarding, and payroll that works anywhere. Just some statistics and more information here. Global hiring has increased 145% in 2022. Demand for product and design roles is shifting from the US to countries such as Argentina and India. So the key takeaway for employers here is that finding high quality candidates that won't cut into profits might require broadening your talent pool that you're hiring from locally and to think more globally. And number two, today's market of HR tools is disjointed. So currently, companies like yourself are using multiple tools to manage your entire employee lifecycle. So it could look a little something like this: a talent marketplace platform to find new hires, an ATS to log and monitor job applicants, an HRIS to manage employee information, a global hiring platform for remote teams, and many more. This creates a lot of HR admin and manual data entry work that's time consuming and error prone. Now I'll hand it off to Kazar, who will dive into the Deel API a little bit more.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. So building off of what Rebecca said, the HR market is just disjointed and there's multiple tools in your HR stack and general tech stack. So based on that, we see the need for integration between different tools and Deel. And that's why we have brought out Deel API. So you can use Deel API to streamline workflows and processes and synchronize data across different platforms. What can Deel API help you do? So you can essentially automatically streamline your talent operations processes and workflow data. You can do multiple things such as contractor management, expense management, invoice adjustment, time tracking. Rebecca, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so you could do time tracking, off-cycle payments, employee data synchronization. So today, Deel API allows you to do everything you want to do around hiring and managing contractors. And soon enough, we're also bringing out EOR, the full-time employee scope. So these are like the top high-level things you can do, like create contracts, change them, and then manage expenses, like make adjustments to invoices, give bonuses to people, or have them declare any expense, give them allowance, all these kind of small adjustments that need to be made on a contractor invoice. Time tracking is quite popular. So there's multiple tools used today to track times for contractors on the projects they're working on. And then Deel API helps you synchronize this time automatically to Deel instead of doing it manually. And then off-cycle payment is like if you want to pay people instantly off their cycle, you can do that with Deel API easily. And then finally, like you can synchronize employee data across multiple platforms. You can pull out the data from Deel and then synchronize it back to your HRIS or any other platform that you're using. So going a little bit into detail of the API resources we have available today, we have 6 key resources and then more coming. So contract scope is something you can use to create contracts, amend contracts, sign them, send them to folks who, such as contractors, so that they can sign and then activate the contract, and then do other things as well. Anything you need to do around a contract. Timesheets is everything you need to do around time tracking. So you can synchronize, use timesheets resources to synchronize employee time data. So to give you an example, if you're using a time tracking tool such as Harvest, and your workers are logging their time into that tool, and then now you have the need to every month or every week manually download that data and upload into Deel. What Timesheets, a resource in Deel API, can do is you can build an integration between Harvest and Deel, and then automatically synchronize this data back to Deel. Then going into tasks and milestones. So if you have workers-based contractors and workers based on task and milestone type of contracts where you need to create tasks for them, you can use these resources to essentially create project tasks for them. So let's just say you're using Monday.com, and where you are hiring people on contract base, and you are creating different tasks for them, and you are paying them based on these tasks, or you can also look at it as projects. Using Deel API, as soon as you're creating a project in Monday.com for a contractor, this can be automatically synced to Deel using the API. And once they complete the work and you approve the work, it can be they can be paid for the work they have done. Invoices resources, everything around your invoice line items and invoice adjustments. You can see line items of your contractor invoices, and then also you can make adjustments. So for example, if you have contractors and they are declaring expense in one of your systems, such as Expensify, and you have the need to synchronize this data back to Deel. And I'm using Expensify just an example because we also have a Expensify integration. So most likely people will be leaning towards using that. But let's just imagine there's another tool. So you can use essentially Deel API to synchronize invoice adjustments, such as expense declaration, back to Deel. And in other cases, if you need to give somebody a bonus, you can also use invoices resource to actually make this adjustment and then review it as well, so that it can be approved by either the manager or the accountant, whatever level is set in your organization. And finally, the organization scope or the resource is everything to do with your organization. So you can use this to get data for your organization, for your teams, legal entities, and there's also helping and lookup endpoints. So you can get like different countries that are supported in Deel, the currencies, the job title or seniority. So these kind of different things that can really help you create contracts or navigate around Deel API. You can use organization and lookup resource for that. The two on the right, EOR and time off, they are not out yet, but they are coming really soon. So EOR is everything to do with full-time employment. You will be able to create contracts for full-time employees, just like today you are able to do for contractors. And the time off one, also coming out really soon, is where you can synchronize time off for your employees between different systems. So for example, if you want to manage all of your employee time off in your HRIS, but at the same time you want to automatically sync this data back to Deel using the time off resource for Deel API, you can do that automatically. So yeah, these are like some examples of the resources we have available today, but we are also ramping up Deel API. We are bringing out more features in Q4 and beyond that. So we really recommend you to explore Deel API documentations and then get familiar with what is possible today with it. So you can essentially understand like what kind of use case you need to build and also how we can build it. And of course, you can always reach out to us so we can actually support you with like right amount of information so you can like build your use case. So this is what's possible today with Deel API. And next, I want to give you an example of one of the customers that have used Deel API and have been really successful with it. And this customer is Magic. So Magic is an online marketplace for pre-vetted virtual assistants. So businesses can hire pre-vetted virtual assistants and and Magic takes care of sourcing, screening, matching assistance. So they make it really easy for companies to hire these virtual assistants. And they have been growing really fast, and they have like this is really impressive growth they have seen, and they're using Deel as a global hiring platform. So their key need before Deel API was that their team, the talent ops team, was spending many hours for the last mile of hiring. And by last mile of hiring, I mean creating contracts, sending these contracts to the people who sign up on their platform as virtual assistants. And then there will be a lot of operational overload, a little bit of back and forth before the contract can actually be activated. And this resulted in delays in VAs getting hired and getting their contracts activated, which essentially is bad news for Magic, because if this is a slow process, the people would want to use their platform less and less. And that was the problem they were trying to solve before Deel API. So what our API really enabled them to do was to automate contract creation with Deel API, and not just that, they were also able to automate the contract creation, but furthermore, they were able to sign these contracts digitally and then send them to the relevant worker. And in case they have a support ticket where the worker says, "Hey, I don't want to receive this contract on this email. Can you please change my email?" Previously, all of this was manual, but now with the integration, they are able to easily switch the contractor's email also. So all of this process that used to take 2 weeks for them per contract from first point until the contract becoming active is now done instantly. So this is the power of Deel API that you can see with Magic. And as a result, Magic was able to create 8,000 contracts through Deel, which using the API resulted in 50 hours saved monthly for like admin work, and that amounts to 25% reduction in workload. And this really shows that Deel API is helping you as a business become more efficient with your operations, and at the same time, it can help you save costs in many different areas. And then in today's day, especially when you're a growing company, cost saving and becoming more efficient is super important, as we have seen around the market. So the Deel API today is really helping you automate your talent operations across the board. And with more and more features being added to the API, we are going to bring out more functionalities and cover more use cases that that can really help you. Now, how to get started with Deel API? It's really simple. It's as simple as these 3 steps. You can go to developer.deel.com and explore our API documentation, and you can just get started with our guides, or just hit the playground to see how what kind of request body and response and what kind of endpoints are available. So this is just like the first phase. And then when you are ready to work with Deel API, you can go to your Deel account. And if you don't have a Deel account, you can easily sign up for Deel, and then go to Developer Center and create a sandbox. And this sandbox is essentially free, and it has sample data. So this works as your isolated testing environment where you can do everything without having consequences on your production, real employee or contractor data. And then you can use this sandbox to build your API integration. And once you're ready to go live, you can then generate live API tokens in the Developer Center when you're ready to deploy integration. I do have to mention here, we have OAuth-based authorization. So at the end of the day, it really depends on what type of authorization you want to choose for your integrations. Most of our clients are using API token-based integrations, but if you want to use OAuth-based integration, that's completely possible. So getting started with Deel API is that simple. And last thing I wanted to mention is we also have our apps and integration marketplace. So this marketplace has Deel built integrations, but also we are working with multiple partners to build integrations so that your life can be easy. So if you're working with different tools in your tech stack and you would really want to see an integration between them and Deel, we highly recommend that you refer that partner to us so we can work with them to build an integration and bring it to Deel Apps and Integrations Marketplace. That was it from me, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Kazar. I think we got a couple questions. Let's start off. Christoph's question. I think you answered this in your presentation. You just said, "Hey, also time off syncs where you are."
Yeah,
it's coming, right?
So yeah, so this is coming really soon, and we are talking about weeks. So keep an eye on our change log and announcements. And Christoph, you can also reach out to us through email. We'll notify you as soon as it's out. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I believe you as well.
Awesome. Question from Ivy. Can we also integrate Notion and Deel?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It eventually comes down to what is the use case. So I know Notion has an API and now Deel has an API. So depending on what your use case is, I'm sure you can build an integration between Notion and Deel. Like if your need is to pull your Deel data and then integrate it into Notion as or some sort of default directory, that's possible. If you want to use Notion to trigger some sort of operation within Deel, whether it's creation of a contract or expense or let's just say invoice adjustment or time tracking, these things are also possible. So it's totally possible to use APIs from both platforms and then create an integration.
Awesome. Hope that answers your question, Ivy. Last question that I see in the chat here is from Pippa. For EOR, what's the expected timeline, and will the global hiring guide be included?
Yeah, so the expected timeline of EOR is again in a few weeks. So what I expect is like first or second week of October, EOR will be out, and it will include indeed the global hiring guide in the form of API, which means that you can call an endpoint and give a country code, and Deel API will give you back all the necessary details that you need to know to hire a person in that region. So for example, the information on what is the maximum number or the minimum number of vacation days allowed for a full-time employee. Are there any tax reduction rules for a certain set country? What kind of insurance fees are applied? Is an insurance required or not? So all these different things that you need to know in order to hire a person in a certain full-time employee in a certain country, there will be an API endpoint which can give you this information.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Pippa. We don't have any other questions so far, but if you have them, please drop them in the chat and we'll give another minute or so. We can cover some other FAQs. So Kazar, what is the price of using the Deel API? I think you mentioned it, but just to make it clear for everyone.
Yeah, so Deel API is completely free. There's no additional cost to use the API. So yeah, you just have the standard Deel pricing. On top of that, there's no additional cost for Deel API.
Awesome. And another FAQ that we've seen, how much support from the Deel team are companies, clients going to get for the development process?
So during the development or before or after, we are here to support in many ways. So first in the form of content and our documentation. So we have a comprehensive documentation which can help you understand how different endpoints and different resources work. And we also have some guides that can help you understand how to, let's say, create a contract or perform different operations in certain use cases. Then on top of it, we have essentially our support team, myself, and the rest of the product team here to answer any of your questions or any requests specific to your use case we are here to support on that and also give our guidance on that. When it comes to any form of development support, the API product is not including any development support from Deel, and neither in form of full-time development or in solution engineering. So which means that our clients will be responsible for doing the development themselves or work with a third party to build the integration.
Awesome, thanks. And I think that leads into another question that we may often see. So, clients might be wondering, how many developers do we need to build an integration?
Yeah, so the amount of people you need to build the integration really depends on the use case and the technology stack you have. So, for example, we have some customers who have built massive integrations using just 2 developers. But also we have one customers who have used some technical folks and built an integration using no-code tools. And at the end of the day, it depends what kind of use case do you have and what is your tech stack, whether you have any no-code tool available or you want to build an integration completely in your tool or any custom integration. So in general, based on the use cases, the biggest use cases we have seen, any given time, you do not require more than 2 full-time developers to build a Deel integration. But then again, it really depends on the use case you have and the tech stack you're using.
Awesome. Thanks, Kazar. We got a question in from Claire here. For time off plugin, what are the public holiday listing that we are following? Is there a flexibility to set up public holiday per company policy?
Yeah, for time off API, basically the contract is preceding any information regarding public holidays. So if you're hiring a person, let's say in the Netherlands, this person will their time off will follow the public holiday schedule for that particular country. Whether there is flexibility to set up public holidays per company policy, I am not sure of that. But what you can do in the Deel EUR time off is there's 3 different type of time off requests. There is vacation, there is sick leave, and then there's other. And other is pretty much everything that is not vacation and sick leave. And then in cases where you have, let's just say, company policy for public holidays, then you can use that other category to set them up. But this seems like we can have more deeper discussion on it. So Claire, if you reach out to us through email, we can get more understanding of your use case and then your company's policy and give you a proper advice on this.
Just to clarify, should they reach out to the CSM or directly to you? Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, so
whoever is your Deel contact person right now, I would suggest them to reach out to them.
awesome. Okay, cool. Thanks for the question, Claire. Anything else? Please drop it in before we start wrapping up. We have a few other FAQs. So Kazar, what kind of API do we have? SOAP or REST?
Yeah, we do have a REST API. So yeah.
Great. I think you just kind of covered that too. Is there ability to create a vacation request and approve it via API?
Yeah, so that's like coming soon. So once we release the EUR time off, then you can add vacation requests and also get like how many days somebody's entitled to and then how many individual vacations somebody has requested. So all different things around time off, you will be able to get through the time off resource.
Cool. And last FAQ that we'll cover, can we use the custom contract template when creating and signing contracts?
Yeah, so Deel today has this custom contract editor. So you have the standard Deel contract, but you can also go in Deel and then create your own custom template, whether you want to make adjustments or any changes to the standard Deel contract. And by doing that, you now have two contract templates. So when you create a contract in the UI, you are able to just switch to the needed contract. And similarly, you can do this in the API as well. You can get the contract template ID. There's an endpoint for that. And when signing a contract through API, you can use that template ID. And what will happen is that the signatures will take place on the custom contract template that you are using.
Nice. Thanks for that. I think that's it in terms of questions. I haven't seen anything in the chat, so we'll wrap up there. So for anyone who has any remaining questions after the webinar, please reach out to your point of contact at Deel, whether it's a CSM or an AE. They'll provide you with as much information and route you to the API team or the appropriate contacts to figure out your questions and your needs. In the meantime, I will just drop the link to the developer docs in the chat so that you have it available again. Yep, so if you click through that, you can explore all of our API documentation. Once again, that's it for us. Thanks, Kazar, for the explanation, and I hope everyone found value in our little live Q&A session on the API. And that's it from us. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.